G'day everybody, welcome back to the G-Man Show. Today we're looking at an ABC Australia video. No more NIMBYs, the rise of the YIMBYs being yes in my backyard. Let's take a look at it, and as always guys, I'm going to comment through it. So if you want to watch it without me ranting, commenting, all that sort of stuff, the original video is in the video description.
Sydney absolutely is running towards the city of no grandchildren. As a young person, you can't afford to be here, and YIMBY is trying to turn this around.
Sydney YIMBY stands for yes in my backyard. Social justice is a massive part of what drives me.
I was homeless for a period of time. It is genuinely life-changing to have stable and secure housing. I'm saying yes to higher density because that's what really will help us. YIMBY is about making sure that my kids will have a home in the future.
Who's known somebody who moved away from Sydney just because they couldn't afford it anymore?
We have to address housing supply. We are part of Greater Sydney and we are in the middle of a housing crisis.
It's not a housing crisis. It's been the status quo since the last 20 years. Most people have not been able to afford a freestanding home in Sydney. Yes, it's absolutely a breaking point now. But are we coming towards the end of anything? No, this is a new normal. And property prices in Sydney, even around the whole country, they're going to keep going up and up. Why is that? Well, we have started on the easing cycle on interest rates. So we're probably going to get one in July, likely. Debatable by some people, but very likely looking at it. We're sitting at sort of 2.4% inflation. We're just toward the bottom of that band of 2 to 3% and going down more because you don't want to overshoot that. Otherwise you end up in stagflation. You're probably going to get another couple, 2 or 3 more this year and a couple more next year at least. So what's that going to do? Well, people are going to start running down to the mortgage brokers. They already are. They're trying to get in because a lot of people who have their finger on the pulse know that the crowds are going to start running in when they can borrow more money up to their neck to indebt themselves for another 30 years. They'll rush to go and do it. It's not a problem. So yeah, but people say we're in a housing crisis. We're in the middle of a housing crisis. We're not really. We're in the middle of the new normal of Australia. And it's been this way for a long time.
Save our suburbs. Save our suburbs. Save our...
I do have concerns of low quality, high density housing. It's not good. You know, my fear is that we're building slums of the future.
The great Australian dream, as they say, is dying fast.
We are a broad church membership. We're made up of people of all ages, renters and owners, all kinds of jobs, because housing does really affect everyone.
So I can see what's going to happen here. And I'm completely fence sitting on this particular video because I can understand everybody is self-interested. Never forget that. So everybody's point of view and what they want in this world is based on their own personal circumstances. So you're going to have the people there. So they show these people who want to get in, they want to have a place to own. And why wouldn't you? You agree with them. Why would you not want to have a place that's yours, that you're not under too much threat of being kicked out of unless you can't make the mortgage? And then you have the other group, which are going to be the NIMBYs, which are going to be the people who have enjoyed the area they're living in for a period of time. They have their home there and they like how it is and they don't want these 20-story things going up. I can also agree with that too. I don't think the NIMBYs are going to be able to keep this at bay through lobbying and protesting for much longer. I just can't see how people are going to be able to own property in the future without having so much more volume put onto the market via, yes, these, I'll agree with them, slums of the future, these cheap looking apartment buildings that are put up that have got 100, 200, 300 apartments in them. Low quality builds slapped up with corners cut.
It's a mild autumn afternoon and a few Sydney YIMBYs are about to go to Hunters Hill Council for a vote on a multi-storey development.
We're building the homes, and so we won't have homeless people in the future if we build enough homes.
Little faces poking out. They're happy because they have a house.
YIMBY stands for Yes in My Backyard. It's
like ABC have been pushing this pretty heavily. Like I've done a few videos now on this where they're really pushing that the future is these high-rise developments all over the place. So they're really pushing that narrative that the Australian dream is now just to own a dog box in the sky. Just think about the messaging here, guys. It isn't about preserving the way of life here in Australia. It's the ongoing degradation of our standard of living, where the aspiration now, which in the past you would have gone, I don't want to live in one of those dog boxes. In the past, you would have even thought of wanting to own an apartment if you had the opportunity to buy a home. And now we don't have the opportunity to buy homes. So now that's becoming more attractive. These are things we would have turned our nose up at. So what's happening in this country that's pushing us to breaking point is look, I get people in my comments all the time, call me a bogan and conspiracy theorist because I'm talking about immigration or that I'm racist. It's a purely numbers and equation here. You've got hundreds of thousands of people going into each of these major cities every year. Property can't keep up with that. It is not keeping up with that. And that's why now we're going to have a huge urban sprawl. In another 50 years, it'll be like Bangkok. Apartment buildings for as far as the eye can see. Especially once all the NIMBYs do start dying off. I guess they're boomers. People hate boomers, so they're probably looking forward for that to happen. There'll be no more rallying against these sorts of things and trying to block them and block the planning of them. It'll just be fair game.
Growing social movement advocating the right to shelter and increased housing density.
We became a family of YIMBYs before even using that term, so we've had some pretty poor rental experiences.
I was living in a mouldy heritage conserved terrace with Emily being 7 months pregnant, while my local MP was campaigning against 7 stories just down the road.
And so we put in a notice to move, so they took us to the tribunal and we showed them all of this paperwork of us asking again and again, hey, can we not live in a place full of black mould, and them ignoring us.
And seeing the link between my bad housing experience and the prevention of something better being built has been significant for me. I feel a sense of moral obligation to build a better city for the next generation.
Is that like a more crowded, polluted city? He thinks that because if you get new properties that they're going to be good. So what's going to happen, dude, is you're going to buy one of these new developments, you're going to get smashed with strata. I've made videos about that. You're going to get absolutely rorted for sometimes $1,000 a month. Thousands, not a month, a quarter. You're going to have a lot of defects in those places, a lot of upkeep. You could have any structural defects that go over and above what your strata covers. So you're going to pay special levies. It's not a utopia, those buildings. And they look nice for a little while, I'll agree with that, but they age very badly and they look like eyesores. Go and look at those. I'm not sure if they're even still there anymore. I think they knocked them down. The public housing towers in like Flemington and Richmond and all of that, they probably looked okay back in the 60s and 70s whenever they were built. Now they're the ghettos. They're the eyesores, huge eyesores that people want to stay away from due to crime and all that sort of stuff.
In 2015, Justin started campaigning for increased housing density in his local area. He wasn't the only one.
The first time I turned up to a council meeting, it was alone. And the next time I turned up, there were a couple of us. And then there were 20 of us.
Sydney YIMBY formed in April 2023. We're like, oh, we're actually saying yes to development. Me too. Why don't we start something?
Yeah, that would be a cool house configuration.
Melissa wants to see more housing supply in Sydney. both as a single mum and town planner.
I grew up on the street I currently live on, so when I had...
Poor old single mums. What's with society saying? Oh, she's a battler. She's a single mum. She's a single mum, guys. Let's help her out. I've never understood that. You're there because of your own decisions and choices in life. What about the poor single mum who can't rent or pay for rent? What about the poor single dad? Never say that. I've got a real annoyance with that term. The way they just romanticise and coddle single mums. Just a single mum on benefits.
My son Max, I wanted to give him the same lifestyle that I had. And so as prices keep going up, having to move is something that is constantly on my mind. It's important that this master plan brings more homes so that maybe I can one day afford that as well.
Now, through Sydney YIMBY, she campaigns for higher density by changing planning controls like zoning. But often, Melissa and her fellow YIMBYs face opposition from residents wanting to conserve the character of where they live.
I agree with that. Like, think about if you've gone and bought a place as well. You've got to see, I'm trying to look at both sides of the argument here. Yes, people can't afford to buy a home, a freestanding home. And if they get another place and it's older, or like the guy was saying, and it's got mould and all this, I always pick the worst examples, but it's got mould in it. He should feel the ability, if he's a hardworking person who can manage his money, to be able to have the opportunity to buy something. I get it. Got it. Gotcha. I get it. But I can also understand people who have put their whole life into buying the home that they have and enjoying it. And now people want to come and build a 20-story thing next door. I would have a huge problem with that too. So I think it's good to look at both sides of the argument here.
We acknowledge the design challenges for the 2 apartment towers and that attempts have been made to soften the impact of the now proposed 19-storey towers, which we still consider too high, out of context with the surrounding area and setting a dangerous precedent.
Councillors, the thing is too, so they build these places, they knock them up, they don't improve any of the infrastructure around it. There's more traffic, there's more people needing to park. Yes, they do have parking underneath that you might get 1 car park. Maybe some people have 2 cars. So 1 car's got to find street parking. Then people might have visitors and friends come over and it's just cars everywhere.
Any further speakers for the motion? Councillor Vergara.
Council has had this for more than 20 years. Let's not have another 22 years go by and have the need for 100 stories. Let's just get this done.
Today, despite objections from some councillors and the public, the motion for the Gladesville Master Plan has passed.
All those in favour? Against? That is carried.
It's a small...
The thing is, this is just going to be the way of the future. There's no fighting it. It has to happen. Otherwise, you're going to have mass homelessness.
Victory, but it's taken decades.
Those joints, they look like absolute garbage. Come on, don't tell me they don't. I can understand why people might want to live in them, right? And if I get in a good area and they can buy a little apartment or rent a little apartment, I wouldn't recommend buying them. I'd just rent one. Yes, you could have a lot of conveniences close to transport, public transport and restaurants in a certain community and maybe close to work if you're in a city. I can get that. But buying one is how to throw money down the drain.
And for YIMBYs like Emily, time is running out. She was homeless as a teenager and doesn't want others to go through that experience.
I had a really tough situation when I was growing up. I left home as a teenager and was homeless for a period of time. So, you'd go somewhere for a sleepover on a Friday night, try and stretch it to the weekend so that you had a good amount of safety for then. Maybe they'll let you stay a week, maybe 2. There have been times where I have slept outside, and there have been so many times that I've slept on a couch or slept on the floor in someone's room.
This is really big at the moment in Melbourne. I don't talk about it too much, but every time I go into the Melbourne CBD, there's more and more people lying on the footpath or ranting and raving and carrying on because they've got mental health issues from being homeless and probably drug affected and psychotic breaks because life has become too much for them. It is a really big thing. It's just, how do they manage this?
It's still a raw memory for Emily and a difficult one to share with her daughter.
Then I went to the Riddells and I said, can I stay with you? And Uncle Lewis gave me a big hug and said, for as long as you need. So I eventually lived with a family friend. And if I didn't have people to go to who did have safe, secure housing themselves, I don't know that I would be here. And so how on earth could I experience that, get into safe housing now and go, oh, well, if I don't like the look of something, I don't think it should exist. People need to face the reality of the housing crisis. I care about social justice. I care about everyone getting a home. And if most of our wage went to housing, well, I'd have nothing left for this. It's because of that safety that we're able to do the advocacy.
Hi. How are you? Good. Great to see you.
Let's do it.
In Sydney, just about everyone agrees we're in a housing crisis, but opinions are divided as to the solution.
What do you think about apartments?
The apartment living is fine. We have to face the fact that if we good percentage of us want to live in big cities, we have to have that.
Yep.
Today, Emily and fellow YIMBY ARCs are in the inner west of Sydney, talking to residents about multi-storey apartments in their area. They're trying to change the conversation around housing.
I've seen some really nice apartment shops and stuff,
all of that density
that bring more of a community instead of a ghetto.
It's so nice to hear that your sons being able to live in apartments has kept them close to you, because we hear a lot about the city with no grandchildren.
That's not another topic, is people not having kids because it's too unaffordable. The cost of food and accommodation for kids and school. When I say accommodation, you want a bigger home, okay? So you might be able to live in a one-bedroom apartment with your boyfriend or girlfriend or wife, husband, whatever. But now you've got a kid or two. You need a bigger space. How do you going to afford the upsize, okay? Then you got the incoming school fees, daycare fees, cost of food, nappies, prams, clothes, activities. So how do you afford all of that with what's going on in the world at the moment? A lot of people are putting it off for now. Or having kids towards middle age, 35, 40, even 45 now, pushing it up to 45. Interesting changes in social dynamics. Most of it's got to be driven by housing. Let's move it along a little bit. So we'll go to how is it affecting nurses and essential workers. We'll jump into that.
Of the crisis. You've got emergency services workers unable to live in inner parts of Sydney because they can't afford it. So when you get to that level, you start to see that a city can't function properly.
The Sydney YIMBYs know this all too well. Today, they're attending a nurses and midwives conference. They're collecting signatures to support increased density of housing in the suburb of Camperdown, just a short walk from the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital.
I mean, the thing that I just kept thinking is the government owns this land, and 100 homes, especially so close to one of the biggest hospitals in Sydney. What a massive waste. These people who give so much, they deserve better than they're getting for housing.
So what, you want the government to fix your problems? Well, there's these people living in la-la land, the government's going to do something to help you. Government's not there to help you. The government's to extract as much tax-paying money out of you as possible. And for you to keep spending your money as a consumer in the economy. That's all you're there for. Make no mistake about it. The government should do this to help 100 nurses.
It made 100% sense for us to really fight for this.
The New South Wales...
All right, see what that's going to be about. We'll talk about defective apartments, something I love ranting about. Let's go.
20-storey builds is concerning. He's worried new developments like Camperdown might be of dubious quality.
My concern is that once the high-density housing occurs over there, it's just going to be the start of this whole area getting built out in an inappropriate way. The low-quality, high-density housing, it's not good. If this becomes...
Looks like, I'll agree with them. I reckon they look like absolute rubbish in Melbourne, in a lot of suburbs. Around train stations now, they've built up a lot of high-density apartments, either on top of stores and all that sort of stuff, or as standalone buildings. And as I said, they look good, I don't know, for a couple of years. And the shine starts wearing off those pretty quick, and they just start looking manky because they're not maintained very well, especially the exteriors of these buildings. They just don't look good. I've had experience. I once bought a place off the plan. Worst experience I've ever had. Had leaking and all sorts of shit happening to it. And it was such a battle to get the builder to come and rectify these defects under the building insurance. So you almost give up. It's still a very stressful experience. I know a guy who owns an apartment in one of those high-rise buildings in Melbourne City. And whenever it rains, whenever it really buckets with rain and the wind blows really hard in a certain direction, water leaks in from his windows. Because his whole wall is a window. His water leaks in from there. And he's trying to get it fixed. And he just gets nowhere. Gets put around in circles, said, yeah, we're on it. And they don't do anything about it. Think about that. Like, you're getting water coming in your window. You're like 20 stories up.
Model, let's just stop this becoming 30 stories. I mean, that's what scares the crap out of it.
But for YIMBYs like Erin, the housing crisis will only be solved when far more apartments are built. She was forced to move to the outer suburbs of Sydney because of the skyrocketing cost of housing.
When we bought the house, I was pregnant, and I was really looking forward to having a full year of parental leave.
Can we give you a cuddle?
But Erin's hopes of spending time with her kids were dashed as interest rates rose relentlessly.
How was your day at school?
She was forced to go back to work.
It's really hard. Felicity, our youngest, has been in daycare 5 days a week since she was 6 months. If everything goes according to plan, I'm commuting 4 hours a day. The days I go into the city, I see her for 10 minutes in the whole day. That's 3 days a week.
I think it goes here.
And how does that feel? It's really awful. Zebra line and moose ran out and bear was right behind them. They hid behind the...
I need to think about these things. Like, at the end of the day, you get people... If you're getting forced back to work, and I'm not trying to be non-sympathetic here, but you're living hand to mouth to the point where a few interest rate rises are going to push you to the limit of forcing you off parental leave. That's probably true. Most people don't have that much money in the bank. I'd love to know the actual average, like the median savings balance, like bona fide liquid cash balance that people can draw on when shit things happen. It goes to show you, and I'm not trying to pick on this person, but at the end of the day, if you got to travel 4 hours a day to keep a roof over your head and support those children, you have to do it. That's it. And once again, that's why people are not having children. People need to also think about, can I afford to have children? A lot of people don't think about that, and then their life gets turned on its head because they are, or can be, very expensive. I don't have kids, but my friends tell me all about it. They all have kids.
Bushes where they hoped you wouldn't find them. Moose said, Mum. I get frustrated when people think that preserving an infinite number of California bungalows is more important than enabling families to live and thrive close to where they work. Anything. My faith informs everything I do, and for me, loving your neighbour as yourself means trying to fight for ways to make lives of those who are struggling, those who are vulnerable, better.
Once again, government's not going to help you. Everyone's in it for themselves. We live in a society of self-interest. As I was saying at the very start of this video, it's human nature. People with the money and the nice homes and a nice area, they don't want to see this come in. You get these people here who are battling financially. Right? I don't say this as an insult, it's facts. Battling financially, they're wanting to have something redeveloped up into the sky so they can maybe live there because they want to have affordable housing. You know what's going to happen with this affordable housing? It's a pipe dream. All that's going to happen is, and it already is the way now anyway, houses are for wealthy people, like high-earning couples, for the most part, in desirable suburbs as well. I'm not talking about an hour away or 2 hours away or wherever these new housing developments are going up. I'm talking about, yes, the Californian bungalow in an inner city area. That's for wealthy people now. That's working class, middle class, upper middle class, basically priced out of all that. These houses cost millions. Who's going to be able to afford that without help? Think about what's going to happen to apartment prices. What, you think they're going to stay at $400,000 or $500,000 or $600,000? I don't even know how much one of these apartments costs in one of these high-rise buildings. The price will inflate based on demand. We're having too many people come in here. You can put up 100 of these towers. And it's not going to make much of a difference. But you've got 600,000 people or something coming in a year. Or whatever the number is. I don't even know what it is. It's hundreds of thousands. So what's going to happen there? People are just going to be clamoring to buy those assets, to buy those homes, those places to live, and it pushes the value up. That's it. It's not going to be this utopia where everyone gets a house and for $200,000 and it's easy to pay it off, and anyone of any earning capacity can live there, and we're all living in a happy dream and dancing around the campfire. You're going to have substandard apartments that are going to get inflated to huge prices. Think about about 15, 20 years ago, I remember when they started doing all these townhouse developments. Those were the rage then, where they subdivide it, they knock a house down and they put two houses on it. And I remember saying, oh, those little houses. People would say, oh, they've knocked down that nice house, put those two little dog boxes on it, like 3-bedroom townhouses that are considered large by today's standards. Those are now considered premier property. Now you're getting these townhouses put on. There's actually development very close to me, actually next door to me, because I always talk about the power tools going off. They had a double block, so it's probably about 1,000 square metres, decent size. That's been knocked down, and there's 6 townhouses on it. 6. They all look the same. They look shit. Those they knocked them up. They'll got that same look, same facade, no soul, nothing to them. Those will probably sell for a lot of money each. So things get smaller, stay the same price, or get bigger. That's what I'm trying to say here. Long-winded rant. How the housing crisis is affecting the lives of artists and musicians. Well, the best of times they don't have any money and are very unstable, so it can't be great here. What's the next section? How the housing crisis is affecting Gen Z. Let's jump into that.
Whose work is acceptable to people who are making funding decisions.
Arx is renting in the inner west suburb of Erskineville. Like many young people nowadays, he spends 80% of his income on housing.
Wow.
It is something that I'll have to pay for, the foreseeable future for a long time, because I'm never going to be able to afford to buy it. The reality...
80%. That is astronomical. I'd love to know what his income is. Is he earning a good income, or is he like an artist or a student or what? But 80%. That's a problem.
The idea of owning my own home in my lifetime it's probably moving out of Sydney. It's actually really scary because I look at my friends and it just seems like the biggest factor of what their future is going to look like is not what they do for themselves, it's their family wealth.
Hey, how are you doing? There has been a basic idea in Australia that upward mobility can be attained if you want to move upward. You go to TAFE or you go to university, you do work and you work up a deposit to eventually own a home. That upward mobility in society...
But this is the problem, right? You get these guys who are probably, they don't like the system, operate out of the system, anti-capitalist, lefties, Labor voters, whatever. They want to live in a city. They don't want to compromise. I've got nothing to say to that. It's just you need to pull your head out of the clouds. Instead of demanding the area changes for you, you've got to understand where you sit in society, I guess, and move out. Move out further if you don't want to spend 80%. That's a choice. While it sucks, it's a choice.
Seems to be getting away from an average income earner in Sydney. Younger Australians who are renting are not saving. They're going backwards. At this point, I don't think that an average income earner between the ages of 20 and 35 will be able to own a home in Sydney without the help of mum and dad.
No, Daddy, I was going to say no crap, mate. This has been the way forever. But I mean it. Like the last 15, 20 years, Sydney's been unaffordable. This is basically not just Sydney. This is all over Australia. Brisbane now is huge. Adelaide, Melbourne, Canberra. Unless you've got a high-earning job or have some capital coming in some other way, through an inheritance or deposit provided by parents, or if you're lucky, get access to some sort of scheme that might get you in the door, you basically got Buckley's chance of getting in as a younger person. You're going to have to work and save for a lot of period of time. And then what happens as you do that, the market moves away from you every year, right?
That's certainly the reality for Arx and his friends. Today, he and Emily are meeting these young Sydney-siders to see how they're impacted.
Living with family it's quite limiting. So I can't actually involve myself in...
Look who they've willed in here. All right, I'm not going to make any disparaging comments. I don't need to say anything.
Relationship, because I don't have the privacy. My parents' bedroom is like share a wall, and my other sisters share a wall. It's not the greatest situation. I don't have any possible prospects of being able to rent in the next 5 years, even with a graduate job.
The places that used to be affordable, they no longer are.
Even for us, we have rusty water.
How much do you guys pay?
For our rent?
Yeah.
I pay $292, which is really good for Ashfield.
Currently, I share a room with one of my sisters. We're playing a juggling act between sharing a tiny space and living at home.
For young people like these, moving out of home means paying rent of around $300 a week for a small room in the city.
How old are you?
21.
What do you think your housing situation would be at 25?
I think I still be sharing.
We don't want to leave, but we're being priced out to the point where I can't afford it here anymore. I work a full-time job and I also study part-time. I also tutor on the side just to make it so I can afford living in Sydney. It's not just housing, you have to afford your housing and you have to pay for your food and hanging out with your friends. Do you not want us to socialise anymore?
Do you have plans about family planning or anything?
Move out of Sydney, I reckon. I know it's an obnoxious thing to say, but I think it's all looking good for young people there. That's for sure. Especially if you're not from money, you're the average person, the average earner at that age of their lives. Pretty hard to earn money, earn enough money to be able to buy anything in Sydney. Maybe Western Sydney. People turn their nose up at Western Sydney. Maybe further out in the Western Sydney might be affordable, but they don't want to live there. These are people that want to live in a city and be in the best areas, but don't want to compromise on location. So you can't have both.
Anything?
No, not too expensive. I wouldn't have kids just for the simple sake of I wouldn't have the time to give to them under my economic position, even though that is something that would bring me a lot of joy and is something that I would love to do.
It's like really stunting our growth.
People are saying that like they're blaming it on us for like birth rates are so low. Well, why are birth rates so low? Just look at how our society's built. We don't even have like the housing that can give us the security to even have children.
This is not something that we're going to solve quickly. We might still have to be fighting this fight, but it's worth it. See you later.
So, will the YIMBYs' mission of advocating for housing density actually work?
This is your average ABC voter right here, viewer right here.
Yes, I think that...
All right, I'm going to leave it there. All right. But you guys got the message. I want to call this video is just about conflict of interest. Everyone has a valid point of view in this crisis debate, so to speak. There's no stopping what's going to happen. High-rise developments are coming sooner rather than later, in my opinion. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next video. Cheers.